lay me down to sleep. The child lay in wonder at night after saying the prayer that terrified him, as it always did since the night of understanding the meaning of a few of the individual words. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. Then he would begin his ascending, God bless so-and-so, from the youngest in his family to the oldest, then moving his mind in blessings to his relatives who were tucked in their beds, in their homes. Even at the age of 3, he indeed feared this God that he knew by reputation only. He would tremble in fear, thinking if he forgot someone that he might in fact die before he woke and be took. What he did not know was where he would be took. He did know that to die meant he would no longer be with who and where he felt the safest. His cousin Carl couldn't come with his wife to visit because he had died in a car accident. He did not understand at that age what death was. He assumed that they both were took because he had died. Carl's wife was the one he truly missed, and now he would never see her again. He knew of no afterlife yet. For a few nights he fought sleep with the thought that if he stayed awake, then he couldn't be took before he woke. So much for that. He then rationalized that if he didn't say the prayer at all, then he could not be agreeing to be took if he died before he woke. Well, that only brought more terror because of the combination of knowing and not knowing. The power of the tongue is this chapter. Now this particular book has to do with me and my life. And I guess I call it, looking at it as a third person. The boy had snuck down the creaky steps into the dank and musky smell of the small basement and crawled into his private little sanctuary. The smell of souring clothes was faint where he sat, and he could hear the footsteps of his mother and siblings as they moved about in the rooms above. He had discovered this hidey-ho while playing hide-and-seek with his older brother and sister. He had successfully won the game that day, even though he did end up getting a belt across his butt. He was not aware that she had already made the dreaded statement, "If you don't," whatever her demand was, "by the time I count to 5, you're going to be sorry." He finally presented himself before his mother after he had awakened from an unintentional nap. And yes, he was indeed sorry. He learned to study the sounds of the steps to discern who was making them and where they might be. If she ever made the threat to count, he made sure to show his face before she reached that dangerous 5. This day, he was hiding so he could eat a piece of bread he had stolen out of the new loaf that his mama had put back until the remaining few pieces were gone from the older one. Oh, he did love fresh bread. After swallowing the last bite, he sat there looking first at the single lit bulb that hung from the ceiling by a pair of black wires, then over to the shelf near the steps with its odds and ends neatly positioned and the few boxes placed towards the end. He wondered often what treasures must be in those boxes. He had vigorously tried to reach them once before, but to no avail. A 3-year-old tyke has to live within the limits of his reach most of the time. But there's no limits to his imagination unless the physical boundaries overrule his mind. Then his eyes found a target in the far corner, under the shelf sitting on the floor. He scuttled out and over to his newfound interest, looking it over while wondering why it was not sitting in the living room next to his daddy's chair on the coffee table. The boy sat there looking at the wooden horse and its Indian rider with the arrow pulled back in its bow. He had many theories to whom or what animal was going to be pierced with that arrow. He turned the flat switch and heard the click that he had heard hundreds of times before. He began to unwind the brown electrical cord as he scanned the wall looking for a wall socket. He spotted one beside the shower stall, which was but a 4-foot square metal box standing almost a foot from the wall. When it was used, the water would flow out of it into the center of the room to the drain. Many times he'd seen his mother sweep water to the drain, having to stop and wait for the water to go down. Concrete floor was always wet to some degree or another, and today was no exception, although the darkness of the wet stain shouted he did not hear it scream. He pushed the wire plug into its mate and positioned himself under the illuminated bulb, or at least as far as the lamp cord would let him. He turned the switch, hoping the bulb would light up, and when it didn't, he continued to turn it, enjoying the feeling of it snapping from one position to another. After several seconds of this, he decided to unscrew the bulb to see how it was made. Once out, he did what he had seen done before, not knowing why shaking the lamp bulb would fix it. He shook it gently and then returned it to the socket, again clicking the switch with no satisfying result. It seemed natural to click, click, click the switch for another minute or two. Tiring of that, he again took the bulb out and shook it as hard as he could, discovering that it now made a tinkling sound as if something was inside. Deciding that shaking the bulb must have fixed it somehow, he returned it to its home. Disappointed and not seeing a good result, the bulb again was removed. Standing there with the lamp in his left hand, the bulb in his right hand, he decided to look in through the socket. That is when a bright idea came to him to stick his tongue in the socket, which resulted in a brighter conclusion. When the electricity jumped through his body, he was thrown away from the walls, snatching the electrical cord out of the socket. He had a death grip on both the lamp in his left hand and the bulb in his right hand, amazingly saved it from the Humpty Dumpty effect. Be still and know God. In the suddenness of both the explosive charge of electrical shock and the force of his body when he landed, he knew he was not alone, with no understanding that he was physically dead, because he was, at that moment, in a greater reality of life than he had ever known since the day he came into the world. The remembrance of his escape from his mother's womb and the anger he felt at the coldness his body was thrust into him because of the warmth he felt now, the familiar peace he had before he was born, the stillness of the warm embrace of comfort and calmness of the complete peace. Every thought or question that emerged from within was immediately answered as if he knew the answer beforehand. Every what, where, why, and when came to him as a morsel of food that he had already chewed and swallowed. All that remained was the taste. Even full memory of this experience would only come back to him later as he digested each fragment piece by piece, one overlaying or leading the next throughout the years.